and the alt-right.
So here, this is something also that that I kind of think in terms of. So earlier, I alluded to this idea that I feel like the idea of a unified America was a bit illusory. I feel like we felt that way, or we feel like in the past it was that way. So Adam, um, when you talk about like hip hop and you talk about like rappers, I feel like one thing that's really important for a lot of these guys that a lot of kind of middle class America and I feel like people have lost is where you're from.
Oh yeah,
It's
huge.
yeah, but I think that I feel like in the United States, I feel like we used to be a lot more local. But again, because of the internet, I think something happened to where now the only thing everybody knows Marjorie Taylor Greene. Everybody knows, like, if you ask like a fucking conservative in Wyoming or Montana or whatever, like,
Yes.
which politician do you hate the most? They're gonna talk to you about like people from the House of Representatives in New York. They're gonna
Yes.
talk to you about people that have no impact on their lives whatsoever.
Right.
And I think that there's an illusion I think that's created in the past America where everybody's involved in their own communities and their own churches and their own unions and their own local politics scene. And you feel like you're kind of a unified America, even though this community and this community might feel totally fucking different about things. But in their own communities, they've achieved some sort of equilibrium where they feel comfortable and confident. But now, fuck local politics. Everybody's on this national level. And no way can you get 340 million people to all feel the same about fucking anything.
But in a weird way, we all do feel the same. It's kind of both because like a rancher in Wyoming, because he's on social media to some degree, is going to be like those BLM riots. They're burning down cities. Like Antifa's coming from, and it's like, listen, let me, as someone who was assaulted by Antifa, I can tell you, like they are not coming to rural Montana. Like just
Sure.
let you know.
But I mean, on that
we're
same
all
thing, though-
immediate. We're brought together in this kind of incredible way.
Yeah, but in like but in a horrible way.
Well,
Because
for
the reality
sure.
is that like if you were to poll a ton, like this is something. Oh my god, my mind! I changed so many opinions on politics when I realized this. Is if you're trying to figure out what Americans feel like, first of all, get rid of the idea of Americans. Number one, and number two, stop looking at national polling data because we don't vote national in anything. We vote for our representatives, we vote for our senators, and then we vote within our states for things. And when you start looking more granularly at American opinion, you start to realize more why things are the way they are. You might think that like, well, 52% of Americans support the legalization of marijuana or prostitution or gun control or whatever. But when you look state by state, you're like, okay, hold on, this breaks down way differently depending on where you're looking at things.
But that's changing.
But we're trying to
opposite trend
force
is happening.
Yeah, it might be, but the problem is we're trying to force our national views on everything where we still have a system, whether we like it or even acknowledge it, that still very much works on the local level. I think BLM and policing is a really good example. We tried to come together as a country and make strong statements on policing, but policing is decided by your mayor. These are
Right.
your most local elections. Obama's not going to fucking save you from a bad cop.
Right.
Trump's not going to do shit about an unfair prosecution. But we all are looking and obsessing at that national level, and then nobody looks at their local communities. And now we're like, well, I feel like we don't get along like we ever did before. It's like, I don't know if anybody from New York City in the year 1892 would have gotten along with somebody from, some rural place, some rancher in Texas, but it felt like they did because they never talked to each other. They never had the opportunity to be exposed to each
Let
other.
me try to bring some of these things together because you're bringing up some very important topics. So, America has never been a coherent nation, and it's never been a nation state
Mhm.
at all. It has always been an empire in some degree or another.
Sure.
So there's actually a thinker who's out of favor now, who I think is a genius, Frederick Jackson Turner, with this notion of the frontier.
Mhm.
So in European languages, if you're, let's say, a Prussian and you have the word frontier, that means border. That means you've got to face off against the Russian Empire, France, some naval invasion, all that kind of stuff. In America, frontier means the opposite. It means endless open space, which we had. You can just go out there and make a new world, and if you can survive, you're it.
Mhm.
And we actually went downward in terms of civilization. So in Boston, you're riding trolley cars and reading the Gospels, and you start to go out into the wilderness and you're rowing a canoe and reading the Old Testament. So we've almost like gone backwards as you go out into the frontier. So and you can see this despite progressive